Okay, let's unpack this. You've brought us a source that digs into something, well, absolutely fundamental for any organization wanting to succeed: the strategic impact of training and development.
That's right. And this research paper, it starts with a really strong claim. It frames employees not just as, staff, but as the major assets of any company.
Hmm.
And it says pretty directly that having a well-trained workforce is basically the best thing that can happen for success.
That really sets the tone, doesn't it?
Yep.
Especially
Yeah.
when you think about the context. The source paints this really competitive, fast-changing business world we're in now.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking tech shifts, globalization, economic ups and downs,
Mm.
even things like the COVID-19 pandemic get a mention.
Right. And in that environment, the source is arguing that training isn't just like a good idea.
It's essential.
It's imperative. That's
Yeah.
the word they use.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive, then, is to cut through all that and pull out the really key insights from this paper.
Exactly. We want to give you a clear picture of why training and development are so strategic, why they're not just some optional HR function.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So maybe first things first. Let's get our terms straight. The paper talks about training and development, sometimes together, sometimes, well, it feels a bit interchangeable. How does the source separate them?
That's a good point. It does acknowledge they're often paired, but it points to distinct meanings, pulling from experts like Michael Armstrong and Edwin Flippo.
Okay.
So training is defined more as systematic activities. They're focused on teaching specific job skills or fixing performance issues.
Right.
It's about getting the knowledge and skills for the job you're doing now, often with a pretty immediate goal.
So like learning new software or a specific process.
Exactly that. Very task-oriented. Now, development, that's presented as much broader.
Broader how?
Well, citing Dale Yoder, it's more about the total growth of the person, preparing them with skills the organization might need, down the line.
Ah,
It definitely includes training, but it's bigger picture. It's about building capacity, getting ready for future roles, overall growth.
so is it fair to say training is more now and development is more later?
That's a helpful way to think about it, yeah. The source even kind of suggests training is the input and development is the broader output.
Okay.
And there's this great quote tucked in there from E.O. Patrick back in 2013. Mankind starts dying the moment Harsha stops learning.
Wow.
Yeah, it really drives home that neither of these things are just, a one-time event. It's got to be continuous.
I like that. So keeping those ideas in mind, why do organizations actually spend resources training people? What's the core reason?
Well, the main purpose, as the source lays it out, is pretty clear. Helping employees get and improve the knowledge, skills, and attitudes they need for their work.
Right. Making them better at their jobs.
Essentially, yes, improving their capability, their effectiveness.
And the paper mentions Uday Parikh's idea, the three crucial elements for effective training: purpose, place, and time.
Yes. Those are seen as critical. Training needs a clear purpose. You have to know what you're actually trying to achieve.
Makes sense.
Then, the right place or setting. Is it on the job? Off the job? Because that affects the methods you use.
Uh-huh.
And crucially, time. The timing has to be right. The source specifically warns that training given too late just delivers outdated knowledge.
Which kind of defeats the purpose.
Completely. The timing has to be, strategic.
Yeah, training on last year's tech isn't going to help much tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so moving from the why to the results, what are the strategic impacts, the benefits the source talks about? Why call it an investment?
Right. This is where you really see the strategic value. The source pulls together benefits listed by Cole, way back in 2001, actually, and they show this Whipple effect of positive outcomes.
Okay, like what?
Well, for the employees themselves, good training often leads to higher morale, more confidence, more motivation. It can also lead to recognition, maybe more responsibility, pathways to better pay or promotions.
So definitely impacts the individual's experience. What about the organization itself?
Oh, the benefits there are huge, directly hitting the bottom line and how smoothly things run.
How so?
The source points to lower production costs. Why? Because trained employees are just more efficient, they waste less, use resources better.
Okay.
You also tend to see lower turnover, less absenteeism, people feel invested in, a bit more secure.
Retention is key.
Absolutely. And super important today, training is vital for managing change. It helps employees understand and actually adapt to new stuff, new tech, new processes, market shifts.
Right. Makes change less scary.
Exactly. And overall, it just improves the quality and availability of your whole workforce.
So it's not just fixing one skill gap. It's boosting efficiency, adaptability, keeping people... Wow. And the paper had that line about cost, too.
It did. It acknowledges, yeah, training costs money. It's an investment. But the argument is the cost of not training. That's more expensive.
More expensive? How?
Well, think about the drain over time. Staff who don't know what they're doing might lose customers. We might stick to old, inefficient methods, slow down innovation. It all hinders progress.
The hidden costs.
Exactly. Those implicit costs of doing nothing can really outweigh the upfront cost of good training.
That really flips the perspective. It's a necessary spend to avoid bigger problems.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
how do companies actually do this? The source talks about different types and methods.
Yeah, it covers the main approaches. You've got the initial induction or orientation for new people, just getting them familiarized.
The welcome wagon, basically.
Pretty much getting the basics down. Then there's on-the-job training, the classic learning while doing, usually guided by a supervisor or a more experienced colleague.
Right.
The source brings up Armstrong's view here. The big plus is it's real, it's immediate, you're not pulled away from work. But the big downside is it really depends on how good that trainer or supervisor is, and if they even have the time.
Makes sense. A great engineer isn't always a great teacher.
Precisely. So contrast that with in-service or off-the-job training. This is more structured learning, away from the actual workstation.
Like workshops, courses.
Exactly. Lectures, case studies, simulations, workshops, all that stuff. The value there is keeping people updated, maybe bringing in outside experts or specialized internal trainers for really focused learning.
And they break down some specific methods too, right?
They do.
Yeah.
Coaching gets a mention, that focused one-on-one guidance, usually from a manager.
Okay.
Job rotation. Moving people between different roles or departments. The source notes this is good for building broader skills, especially higher up, reduces boredom too. It even cites examples from Nigeria with industrial training students.
Building that well-rounded view.
Right. Then there's sensitivity training. This one's focused on self-awareness, understanding others better, improving interpersonal stuff, though the source does add a note of caution about a potential huge emotional cost.
Okay. Delicate stuff.
Yeah. Simulation is another one, recreating job scenarios so people can practice making decisions safely and get feedback. Think flight simulators for pilots.
High-stakes practice without the high stakes.
Exactly. They also mention the managerial grid. That's a longer-term thing about leadership styles, balancing people and production concerns.
Good.
Conferences, group discussions for problem solving, sharing ideas, and basic lectures, still seen as the simplest way to just present facts or concepts efficiently.
That's quite a toolbox. But, as we said, the world keeps changing. How is training itself evolving for the 21st century, according to this source?
Yeah, the source points out some major trends using insights from Linton and Parikh. It shows training isn't staying still.
How's it changing?
Well, there's a definite shift away from just training individuals towards training teams, often across different levels or functions working together.
So more collaborative learning.
Yes, and also getting this intergroup character, helping different departments understand each other better.
Bringing down silos.
Kind of, yeah. Training is also getting linked much more closely with broader organizational development. It's seen as part of this bigger corporate relearning needed to adapt.
Okay.
It's also being shaped by ideas from socio-technical systems, recognizing that tech and people interact, you have to optimize both together.
Right. It's the whole system, not just one part.
Exactly. The audience for training is changing too. More diversity in gender, ethnicity, backgrounds.
Yeah.
So methods need to be more inclusive, more adaptable.
Makes sense.
And obviously with tech, regulations, markets changing so fast, training content and methods have to keep pace constantly.
And maybe the biggest shift.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just for employees anymore.
That's a huge one.
Yeah.
The source highlights this trend of extending training to include clients, suppliers, even the public.
Wow.
It basically turns the organization into a kind of learning system that's connected to its whole environment.
That's a really different way of thinking about who needs to learn. The source even mentions specific examples, right? Training responses to things like terrorism or the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, things like sensitization programs. It just shows how training has to be dynamic, responsive to what's happening outside the company walls to stay strategic.
Okay, so pulling all these different threads together. What's the big picture message from this deep dive?
I think the main takeaway is that training and development, they aren't just, side tasks for HR. They're really central strategic parts of managing human resources.
Foundational.
Absolutely. The source makes this powerful point that even with tons of automation, computers everywhere, humans are still key. They operate things, make decisions. They remain the most valuable asset.
Can't argue with that.
And in today's world, complex, globalized, tech moving fast, this war for talent, trained employees are really the engine for innovation.
How so?
Well, they're essential for making things like continuous improvement or employee empowerment or total quality management actually work. You need the skills and the understanding that training provides.
Right.
And they're key for adapting, for avoiding what the source calls skill obsolescence.
Which seems to happen faster every year.
It really does. And the needs differ, right? Lower or middle levels might need specific new skills, new tech training.
Yeah.
Managers, they often need deeper development, strategic thinking, context, social awareness to lead effectively.
Different needs at different levels.
Exactly. So the conclusion from the source is pretty clear. Organizations that invest strategically in training and combine that with keeping people motivated, they just get better results.
Like what?
More efficiency, higher productivity, better customer service, just stronger performance overall.
It really ties that investment directly to success and maybe resilience, too.
It really does. It's all about building capability top to bottom so the organization can adapt and, thrive.
Well, this deep dive has definitely highlighted just how critical training and development really are from a strategic view.
It's ongoing, a continuous journey, really, for the company and for everyone working there.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you, our listener, a provocative one maybe. If training is this continuous process, potentially lasting your whole career, like the source suggests, and if the business world is becoming this wider learning system, including clients and suppliers, well, what does that mean for your own responsibility when it comes to learning? In this constantly shifting landscape, how much of the responsibility for staying skilled and relevant falls on you, the individual, versus the organization you're part of? Something to think about.